So, obviously you've both had many years of beautiful service in Marin County, and there's still more work to do. And we think of affordable housing, we think of disparities in education and income and healthcare. And it seems sometimes like it's very difficult to make a lot of progress here. And sometimes the discourse isn't very civil in that process. I'm wondering if you have some thoughts on why that's so, and maybe talk to each other a bit about what it is we might be able to do to change that.
Well, I certainly enjoyed modeling that kind of conversation with Bishop Logan. I mean, to have people who actually model civil discourse is a really important thing for our children and for each other as adults. And we certainly see enough of the other kind of speaking. Certainly, we've all seen that in our national debates, and it's kind of shameful. So I feel like being ashamed is a good first step. We're really ashamed of ourselves, and we intend not to speak to each other that way, that we can share differences with civility and kindness and listening. I think this is part of our spiritual commitment, people, not just of faith, but people of good heart. So part of it is, I think, modeling for the children that are going to be taking up the assignment, this terrible assignment they're being left. So that's part of our commitment also, is to work with the kids and try to be that person we want them to learn from.
I agree with what Fu has said. I believe that the faith community has a tremendous responsibility to model what we really would like to see in our world today. Although we may be diversified in our belief systems sometimes, there is a common denominator that runs, I believe, through all people of faith, and that's respect, that's love, and that's an admiration for the fact that we're all a part of the human race. I think when it comes down to modeling, though, we have to do more than just give lip service. We have to be active and proactive in our approaches towards reaching other people. One of the things that I find to be challenging, perhaps, is that people have a tendency to fear what they don't know. And when they fear what they don't know, they have a tendency to separate themselves, polarize themselves, and maybe even become somewhat antagonistic against a group that they don't really understand. I think as people of faith, because we do share so many common things amongst us, we have to separate perhaps our core differences and look at where we can actually come together to make a positive change. I appreciate the fact that, we had a lot of tension in our nation, and we've had it over some of the violence that we've seen in the streets. One particular Sunday, I called for a prayer at our church, and thank God for my friend Carol Holvis. She told me, she said, well, I can use my database and I can summon people to come to that prayer. And we actually filled Cornerstone Church up that morning. Food was there, several of you were there. And we actually had a wonderful time at 9 o'clock in the morning, just praying for the condition that exists and that existed in our country. I think if we could somehow come together more like that as people, understanding that what really tears us apart is our inability to actually see the good that can actually come when people come together. And so my prayer always is the prayer I believe that Jesus prayed: Lord, help us to be one. Help us to understand that there is something that unites us as people. And if we can do that, regardless to race, creed, color, and any other differences, we can make a positive change in our world. it's going to take work, it's going to take commitment, and it's going to take a willingness. And if we have that, those components, we can make a change.
I think last time we spoke that one of the phrases that seems to suit this thought is that we're not like-minded. Particularly in the interfaith, we've discovered that. We're not like-minded. We have different creeds and different belief systems, different liturgies, but we're like-hearted. And that's true not just of the people of faith, it's true of so many of the people of Marin. I think we can end the world. I think there are more like-hearted people than there are people who are cruel and harming. So I think we have to kind of band together and take that to the streets and make that the world we want to.
Well, both of you have already alluded to it, but since it's probably on all of our minds right now, in general, any additional thoughts that you have on what happens November 9th? So we all know what happens November 8th with our election after a very uncivil election season. What happens November 9th, and what role can the faith community play to bring some healing in the aftermath of the election?
That's a very good question. It's a $10 million question. Well, obviously, we have to provide a means to dialogue with people regarding what just happened. Because what will happen is people will, because of the climate that we find ourselves in now, and the tension and the disparity that exist in our country. We thought with the election of the first African-American president, we'd all have a kumbaya moment, but we found out that it's not so. We found out that from the onset of his presidency that there was a faction in the United States government, Congress, that whatever he put forth would not be agreed upon. And so he's had a hard way to go. But in spite of it, he's shown so much integrity of heart and a perseverance that for 8 years just about now, he's weathered the storm. And I really believe our country's in a better situation, regardless to what some may be saying. I know it personally because I was in a particular field where I saw the financial climate of our country change. And many of you might know this as well. You went into restaurants in 2007, 2008, they were empty, but now you can go into Applebee's or wherever you want to go and you see people in there because things have changed, obviously. There's been so much vitriolic hatred and divisiveness over the past 16, 18 months that it's really, I believe, brought us to a place where healing is going to take place or need to take place on November 9th. As people of the faith community, I think it's incumbent upon us to be available. After 9/11, I remember I was called by a local Christian television station to come and make some remarks. I think we have to do the same thing. We have to become available to people, not judgmental, because people are where they are in terms of their belief systems, but we have to have empathy, we have to have listening ears. And hopefully out of that, we can have a dialogue and a conversation that says, although I may not agree with you, I can still respect where you are. And I think the faith community has to really be the greatest proponent of that. If we are I believe we can make a difference. President Obama said something when he first came into office, and I'm sorry for talking so long, but he said, when you're turning a big ship, it's going to take a while. It's going to take us a while to get over this election season because it's been terrible. We don't know what the outcome is going to be. On one end, if it goes one way, there's going to be a lot of anger. If it goes another way, there's going to be a lot of anger. I really believe the only way to quell that anger is just by trying to bring people together, to have honest conversations about where we are, and then move on from there.
Well, I'm nervous about the 8th. I read a very interesting article in the New Yorker today that was a little bit saying, like, humans actually are kind of sort of troubling. We've had troubling history on the planet. We tend toward tribalism, and we tend toward hating the other, and there's kind of a way that we can do that without, historically, if we look at the historical record. And what makes it not like that? It's like the exception is when we come to peaceful agreements and we stop the tribal identity. We stop making the other out of people different from us. So that's the magic of it. Where's the magic of that change? And I know Jesus was one of those. I think the great spiritual leaders of the world, and Buddha was one of those. There were wars going on, and terrible destruction going on, just overpowering other people. And what stopped it? What slows us down and gives us pause? And so I think we want to look to the great spiritual teachers of our past, and we also want to find the ones who are living now who help spread the word and bring this understanding to ourselves and our children and our nation. I think we've really slipped in our own, I feel there's a lot of shame, and I feel like we need to recover our, not pride, that's going the other way too far, but just our respect for our efforts, and they should be really strong efforts. So on November 9th, I think all our doors will be open. I'm sure regardless of what happens, we're going to be wanting to keep on meditating and praying and doing the things we do as long as we are here and able to do